anything else ever again. And I think we will. We actually are closer than people think. But she represented a group headed up by Tom Lambden and busted their humps to get petition signatures and took it to city council. Now, I wish she had done it right. I wish she wrote a question that could have been recognized by the court, and I wish the signatures were obtained according to the charter. And I think we all wish that. I wish it were on the November presidential ballot when you had 90% voter turnout. I wish all of these things were true. And under the city charter, successful petition drives, properly done, and city council, those are the only two ways to get something on the ballot. So in August 2nd, I made these proposals to the city council. Put this on the ballot. And if we have to clean up the question, we'll clean it up. But you need a mandate and you need 90% voter turnout. Put it on the ballot. Council voted 62 against it. And so the second group that came, Stop the Lens, they did it right. And so I'm so happy that you get the chance to vote on August 27th. Because your right to vote in that is very important. And I see Representative Russo in the back. Now, I just led the city through a recession, and you didn't hear me making excuses about I'm a Democrat and all these. Representative Rouson's a Democrat. But guess what? It's about relationships, it's about bringing people to the table, it's about temperament. And Representative Rouson makes no excuses. He brings things to St. Pete.
Thank you so much. Our next question.
My name is Lorraine Brown, and I live on the South St. Pete. And this question is for all three of you, mainly for you, Kathleen Ford. It's been said in our community that the black people on the South Side vote because and not for a cause. I'm one of those that vote for a cause. I see a lot of your signs in places that the last 2 years never would have been there. And I want to know why. These signs are in the neighborhood where people was against you. What is different now about you? And the other ones I would like to know why I should, Mayor, why you should vote for you. And you, who I don't know that much, but I have seen in the city council. I'm one of the solid ones that look like and listen. So why should I?
Thank you so much. And tell me your name again.
Lorraine Brown.
Ms. Brown, thank you so much. I'm really thrilled with the support that I've received. And I had a lot of support in the last time that I ran. As you know, it was a very, very close race. And I think folks are pretty much the same in a lot of neighborhoods. They just want a safe home. They want a safe school. They want their kids to grow and develop. They want to have an opportunity to enjoy beautiful St. Pete. They want to feel safe wherever they go. And they want the opportunity to grow, develop, and spend all of their time, as much time as they want, with their families and really enjoy what we have here in St. Petersburg. And I think folks are beginning to understand that I get that too, and that I really do care about making sure that everybody succeeds. And I've actually been in the trenches and have worked with neighbors in trying to address those issues that we know are critical to the quality of life. I've been a neighborhood association president. I've gone to countless meetings. I've worked with city staff. So I have a pretty good idea of how it's supposed to work, and I'm committed to doing it. And folks know that I kind of do what I say I'm going to do. And when I say I think it's an important issue and I'm going to take a stand for you, I do. And I think it's important that folks feel comfortable that I will stand for you, and I'm there to help you, and I really consider it a privilege to serve as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The reason I'm running for mayor is I want to bring this community back together to unite us as one. And I also want to be someone who solves problems. It's easy to point out things that aren't working, but that's not leadership. It's problem solving. Another thing I think that in 12 years of public service that I've gained a reputation for is I'm somebody who's willing to listen, to learn, and then to take a position and lead. You know, and you have to understand when you're the leader that You're not going to make everybody happy. It's impossible to do that. But you have to be willing to take a position. You have to let people know what that position is. And you also have to be willing to allow people to convince you that their position may be better, and be willing to change your position if they're able to convince you of that. And that's what leadership to me is about, and that's why I hope to not only have your support, but the support of the rest of the folks here.
Thank you so much.
Great question. I've been active in this city since 1998. I spent 10 years on the city council. I ran for mayor because I had a vision and I understood what it took to bring people together, to form relationships, to be open and transparent, and to be in the community, not just of it, but in it. And I've spent the last 3.5 years working my tail off during all of these economic times. And again, no excuses, but making sure that we were postured for this future. And now the future is here, and we're seeing, this resurgence in economic development and job creation. And it's going to get better. And I think as we continue to go forward and we look at what the CRA is going to mean and what rediscovering the Deuces is all about, and the African American Heritage Trail, giving people this education and excitement of their heritage, I think you're going to see this continued resurgence of the community coming together. And all I can say to you is, if you think we are better after going through this recession and coming out, and that you think the city's going in the right direction, then you need to keep me on as your mayor. But honestly, if you don't, then fire me.
Thank you so much.
Real quick, I want to get my facts right. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned a number when it came to economic development and new construction. What was that again?
500 million.
500 million. Okay. Here's what my question is, and we did somewhat through fast. As a mayor, you have some unilateral authority with respect to contracts and how they're distributed. With $500 million coming in, you have between now and November to say what you're going to do to make sure that the black community, is able to benefit small business and individual workers and apprentices, because one of the groups that was left out of this negotiation was our unions, and we're trying to correct that now. But with that kind of construction going on, it can easily go to contractors outside, and then the local community don't get a piece of that, and it's not going to affect our unemployment rate. What are you going to do unilaterally, to the best of your ability, to make sure that money is distributed into the community that needs it the most?
I think we're talking about two different numbers, and the 500 million, and the beauty of that 500 million in new construction is it's private investment on private property. And that private developer can hire anybody they choose, as long as they pay the impact fees, as long as they get the permits and do the inspections and things like that. But what I think is the primary focus is, what are we doing with your money? As stewards of your money, as the city builds up here, as the city spends $40 million plus on a new police station, as we spend your tax dollars for capital improvements, how can we take care of the local hires? And that's exactly what you and I, pastors, members of FAST, members of the Urban League, members of the construction industry, are working on right now to incentivize these contractors using retainage to do local hiring. And I believe that will work, because you and I have talked a lot about this. If the contractors don't buy into it, then nothing changes. But if we craft an ordinance that incentivizes them and to where we can get these cash incentives up front, this retainage into their pockets quicker to help their cash flow, then it works for everybody. But as a steward of your taxpayer dollars, we control that. 500 million in private dollars from outside the community, that's huge.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for your efforts with FAST. The efforts that FAST has undertaken for hiring local are to be applauded in this community. We're spending money on these construction projects, and we have capable, competent people in this community who could be doing the work, and they're not even getting a chance. There's a problem with that. Likewise, the fact that someone who's got a felony on their record is being disqualified from an opportunity to participate in these projects and to work on these projects is a problem. And I've heard that from walk-in neighborhoods when I have a gentleman say to me, I have a felony conviction, I want to work, nobody will hire me, I can't get a job. We have to change that, because if we don't change that, we're not going to change what's happening in this community. Those folks aren't going to have hope, they're going to go back into crime, and that's not the direction we want to go. The apprenticeship programs are very important also, because now we're giving someone an opportunity to do more beyond that project. So I applaud you. I wish it had already passed, and keep the fight up.
Okay, Courtney, you have a comment on that?
Sure, I think Bill made the distinction between private money and public money. And so for the $500,000 in new construction, private business, we're not going to be able to have any say about that at all, except with the revenues that are coming in from those buildings later, the ad valorem tax revenues, and how we spend those dollars later. That's where we can have a say. And in the past, I had worked with contractors, because as you know, part of the challenge for some of these construction contracts is to have the right bonding and insurance. And so whatever we can do to help contractors get those so that they can qualify for those jobs, I think is really important. Now, I did learn that sometimes on these bigger jobs, the bigger contractor will go and ask a subcontractor, minority subcontractor, hey, can I use your name on this project? Will you do this work for me? That contractor, subcontractor, gets paid $5,000, doesn't really do the work. And that's a real problem. So that's an issue of contract management, because I think we do need more electricians, more plumbers, carpenters, masons. And when we do our city construction, we should be looking to make sure that we are spreading that around, because I think it's critical. It's your money, and everybody should have a part of it. With respect to impact fees, I think they should be collected from everybody who owes them, and I don't think the city should be giving anybody a little waiver. So I think it's really critically important that the city of St. Petersburg, and I'm committed to this, is really manage its contracts. And we haven't really done a good job of that, frankly. We need to follow up and make sure what we ordered came in, make sure that what we asked to be done was done. And those are ways that we wisely use our money and make sure that we actually move forward and get the things done that we're supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to make a short announcement. I know that you appreciate that the temperature in the room is going up. The air conditioning in this room went off at 9 o'clock. We had planned for everyone to be able to ask their question. If you're willing to sweat it out, we're willing to sweat it out with you, but you will be sweating, trust me. With that, we'll take the next question. We would ask you to, again, be mindful of your 2-minute limit. Be mindful of the fact that we're here to address questions and elicit responses in a respectful and time-sensitive manner. So with that, our next question.
Thank you. This is mostly for Mayor Foster, but candidate Kriseman, I've seen you at the Pride Parades, so I'm sure you would sign the proclamation as mayor. I know you signed as councilman. Candidate Ford, you would also sign the proclamation as well. So I ask you, Mayor, in all your years as a council member, you would never sign the proclamation. 3 years as mayor, you don't sign the proclamation. Now it seems you're in a race for your life, and maybe it smells a little like you're pandering for votes. Why did you find it? What change of heart? What got you in here, wherever, to sign the proclamation this year as mayor? It's great that the St. Pete mayor signed it. Why did you sign it, though?
That is a great, that was a great question. For 3 years, I've been asked to sign a proclamation recognizing the St. Pete Pride Parade. And for 3 years, I've told the parade organizers, you know what? It's a little over the top for me. It's very adult-oriented. And I look at proclamations as kind of the mayor's housekeeping seal. And even a lot of my friends who participate in the events will agree, some of the vendors are inappropriate for young eyes. Some of the activities are inappropriate for kids. So I've said, clean it up, and you can have your proclamation. But guess what? This year, the parade organizer, the grand marshal of the parade, stopped me as I was walking out of a bathroom in Tampa and said, is there any part about this that you can support? Is there anything about the jobs, the economic development, the equality, the celebration of diversity, the celebration of life? Is there anything that you can celebrate? And I said, absolutely. I celebrate all of it. Not the parade, but all of it. That was the first time in 3 years that I was asked to sign a proclamation recognizing the impact of the community, or on the community, the heads and beds, the tourism, the celebration of diversity, of equality, which we do. It's the first time I've ever been asked to sign a proclamation recognizing something other than the parade. Great question.
My name is Leroy Lewis. I'm a resident of St. Petersburg, born and raised. I have a question for all three candidates. But you see my shirt, you know which way I'm going. In this economy that we have today, we know that it's very out of control. What is our greatest resources that we have today? Asking all three of them.
Candidate Foster, thank you.
Our greatest resource is you and everyone else there, and everyone in this room, because the answers to these challenges that we face today are in this room. That's why I have Mayor's Night Out. That's why I have breakfast with the mayor. That's why I get excited. I mean, if you handcuffed me and I couldn't talk with my hands, I couldn't speak because I get excited. Because the greatest resource we have is you. It's you mentoring a child. It's you being involved in the education of a kid. It's being a mentor at a school or a hall monitor. It's you being an example of a man for young men. Our greatest resource is in this room and is out there. People that love St. Petersburg. You are our greatest resource.
That's a great question, and it's hard to answer that in a single answer because I would agree with Mayor Foster from the standpoint that we have tremendous talent and resources in this community, made up of the community itself. But we also have tremendous resources of the small businesses that we have in our community, of our higher education schools, USF St. Pete, Eckerd College, St. Pete College, of our hospitals, All Children's, and Johns Hopkins, and Bayfront, and St. Anthony's, and what we haven't really tapped into yet is all of them. We haven't done a good job of tapping into you all and empowering you all to be more participatory in the city and encouraging that. We haven't tapped into our higher education schools and partnered with them to create more programs that would create jobs. We haven't partnered with All Children's and Johns Hopkins and the other hospitals to bring the medical industry into our community. We haven't partnered with our green friends, whether it's solar or battery or LED. We haven't done a good job of taking the resources we have right here in this great city and utilizing them to the fullest extent. That's what I want to do.
Thank you. Candidate Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I agree with Bill. I think our greatest resource here in the city of St. Petersburg is our people. We are caring. We do care about each other. We do care about the future for our children, for our grandchildren. We do see that there are some problems that we have, but we know that if we work together and listen to each other, we will be able to solve those problems. And some problems will be easier than others. But our greatest resource is that we're willing to sit down and talk to each other, figure out what we can agree on, work on those, and then those things that are a little bit harder to work on, eventually as we build up that goodwill, we'll be able to tackle those too. And when I look at the folks who get up every morning, go to work, take care of their families, come back, take care of extended families, take care of their homes, and then get back out and work in their communities volunteering, You know, there are so many different organizations that anybody can volunteer in the city. It's just remarkable. And I think that's a testament to people of St. Petersburg because we care. I care, you care, everybody in this room cares. And I think it's the people of St. Petersburg that is our greatest resource.
These three candidates are three of the finest people that I've ever seen. I talked with Bill. I don't know you that well, Mr. Kriseman, but we talked before. You know where you met me at? And Catalina and I, we've been knowing each other for years. But if I voted today, I wouldn't even know which way to go, but I am going to vote.
Question, sir.
My question was pretty much answered 4 people ago, but I'm going to ask at least a question for standing in line for so long. I really want to know what really is the plan to get our communities back to the beautification that they used to be. 4 years ago, we had the mayor before you, sir. We had the flower and tree program. I worked for the city then. I was a horticultural specialist too for 4 years, and all of our communities were beautiful. We went out, I mean, in 2 months, we planted over 250, maybe 300 trees in every community, in every district. And I'm on the south side, I'm in that community, I'm in District 6. And I'm not going to say the black community because I have races, all my neighbors are different races. So what I want to know is what is really the plan to get our communities back to the way they used to look? With all this construction money, you answered it before with the private money, and you know, you answered my question with that, but I just want to know what is the plan to get our communities back into the beautification for St. Petersburg, Florida.
Well, former Mayor Fisher's not here right now, but I know he's smiling with that question. You know, and I said this earlier tonight, is, you know, your budget really is the document that kind of says what your priorities and your values are and what's important to you. And what has to be decided is how much of a priority is our community and the way our community looks, the way our community feels, and the way our community functions. And you know, you can't talk about neighborhoods if you don't invest in neighborhoods, and that includes maintaining and cleaning them. That includes making sure that the grounds that are around lakes in the neighborhoods, that are in the parks, that are well maintained. If that's the priority, that's what you have to focus on. And that goes to, the same thing goes with codes. Again, if you don't invest in that, then you don't get the result of that. So it's all about priorities. To me, it's one of the things that's always made us special as a community. I mean, we're the 4th largest city in the state, but we're also a very small community and a very special community, and we have a very unique feel to us. And some of it's the people, and some of it's the way we look. We have the most incredible park system, but if we don't maintain it, then we don't have such an incredible park system. And it's in every neighborhood, and it has to be in every neighborhood. So it's all about priorities and values, and to me it's a priority. It's got to be a value.
We used to have a neighborhood partnership program where we would leverage city dollars with the sweat equity of neighborhoods, and I would restore that program because I think we really saw amazing. And I think we should really grow that program because we were able to leverage so much. And I think it really brings neighborhoods together, and it's been something that we can really do a lot better on. So I would restore the neighborhood partnership program. And there was the team concept that we used to have where we would have somebody from sanitation who could look at perhaps having the cleanup days, you could get the hazardous paints and all that, have a dumpster there so that everybody could very easily get rid of stuff. That works really well. Then you coordinate with street sweeping, you coordinate with sanitation coming and picking up the bigger pieces of equipment, whether it's furniture or appliances. And then, of course, you have to have codes compliance. And we really slipped in that area, and it makes a difference. And I think once these foreclosures get through and we hold some of these banks' feet to the fire, because they're the ones who are dragging down some of our neighborhoods, because they're holding off on the foreclosure sale, because the banks know once it comes into their hands, then they're responsible for all the maintenance. And I think we at the city can work a little bit harder to address some of those issues, because I think we have a beautiful city and we can make it even prettier. Thank you.
Mr. Kriseman, if you know of a park that's not being maintained, please call my action line, because that would offend me greatly. I think the city looks great. I think our parks look great. I have focused on look, smell, and feel. Now, flowering trees and things like that, not so much. Over the last 3.5 years, and going through the recession, and this isn't an excuse, this is a fact. I have focused on budgetary constraints, departmental consolidations, assessing need versus want, and for every $50,000 that we were able to save or not spend somewhere else, for every $50,000 of efficiency, that was an employee that got to keep their job. My priority was people keeping their jobs. And I don't mean supervisors. In the 3.5 years that I've been there, I've reduced management, professional, supervisor, and administration by over 50 people. So it's not that, it wasn't this top-heavy stuff, no. I wanted to make sure that the rank and file could keep their jobs. Now, as far as sanitation, yes, we absolutely prioritize look, smell, and feel. And we do have those neighborhood cleanups where sanitation will come and do those pickups and things like that. So we still work very closely with our neighborhoods, like Historic Country, like Riviera Bay, like Mirror Lake. And we work with these neighborhood partners with their own sweat equity. And yeah, we pick up a lot of trash in the city. That's why our people are the #1 resource. But yeah, it has been a need versus want. Now, we're going to experience about 4% growth as we go forward. And as we see a lot of these things come online, we're going to be able to do a lot more. The previous mayor, under those administrations, there's a $30 million reduction in ad valorem alone. 30 million, not cumulative, from under Baker to me. I could say yes, I could give you anything you want if I had $30 million.
Thank you, sir. Our next question, sir.
Good evening. I actually have a few questions, and I'm going to jump off the sanitation comment. St. Petersburg has these large dumpsters every once in a while at different events that say Florida's greenest city. But we live in a city where recycling is still optional, and that confuses me how we can be the greenest city in Florida when recycling is optional. It's $36 a year. Landfills cost money. If all that plastic isn't going to landfills, you're spending less on landfills. So why not make recycling mandatory? That's an economic issue. My second question is, my partner's parents were on a boat a few years ago, and his mother got very sick on the boat, and they called emergency services. And when they got back to land, St. Pete Emergency Services started attending to her, and they were about to get her into an ambulance, and here comes Sunstar. So they had to stop everything they were doing, and Sunstar took over. I don't understand. Every time, I had someone down the street from me who just died recently, and ambulances were there multiple times, and every time one showed up, the other one would show up, and then there seemed to be some dickering outside about who was going to take what. And it just seems like a waste of money and also a danger to the people's health. So I'd like to know what your comments on that, and also to the candidates, what your thoughts are on those two issues in particular. I also have one more quick issue.
We only have 10 minutes.
The homeless are off the corners, but now they're in the alleys dumpster diving. So you haven't gotten rid of the issue, you just got them out of people's eyesight.
Thank you so much. Candidate Foster, candidate Ford, candidate Kriseman, 3 issues.
I mean, I could spend 3 minutes on each one of those. Mandatory recycling. I'm all about recycling. We had this voluntary program that was subscription-based. We haven't found a system to where recycling breaks even. And yet, it may only be $36 a year. But it's $36 on a sanitation customer that I'm not willing to impose upon them to make it mandatory. Now, what I did propose is that we put something like that on the ballot to see if people would spend up to $3 a month for mandatory recycling. And I told that when it got very little support from the city council at all. Now, EMS, that's an issue Andy touched on, and it's huge. I serve on the county's EMS task force, and I was there, and I've studied Sanford, Milliken, and IPS, and these are things that you don't have to understand. But one thing I do understand, we have a great dual response system. That's why our red trucks get there in 4.5 minutes, and we triage and we comfort and we treat. And then Sunstar is that dual response because they do the transport phase. And then so our red trucks get to go back into service while there's a transport. We don't do transport. And quite frankly, under this study that we have, I'm not sure that we need to do transport. We had the Fitch study done, and Fitch actually said that in North America, we have one of the best clinical systems anywhere in North America. And I'm very proud of that. And it might be a little expensive, and Ken Welch and I were looking at building in efficiencies, and we're working with the administrator, but that is a huge importance. Your safety, your clinical care in those first 4.5 minutes is the most important thing. And we have a great system, but it is dual response. And we're not going to compromise on response times and who responds. We're not going to get into this priority dispatch. And even the Fitch study said priority dispatch does not work.
Time.
So the red truck's going to come.
Thank you. 3 issues: homelessness, recycling, and Sunstar and EMS. 2 minutes. I'll say.
I helped start the initial recycling project here in St. Petersburg. When Marjorie Ruth came to me when I was neighborhood association president, we started it, and it was based on a state grant. However, the city was accepting the money and then dumping the stuff anyway. So that really killed a lot of enthusiasm for a recycling plant. I think we really need to do it, and we need to figure out how, and it's just a matter of willingness to do it. And I think we start out with a smaller neighborhood as a pilot and grow the system. With respect to EMS, transport seems to make all the money, so I'd like to see if the city of St. Petersburg can take over the transport part of it and make some money. As you all know, the EMS, the Emergency Medical Service, is a separate tax that you pay on your property taxes, and it's for emergency response. And the city and the county have an agreement where the county says, okay, you little municipalities, you cities here in Pinellas County, you all will provide that first response, the EMS response, and then we're going to contract with Sunstar to do the transportation. So I don't know that they're always bickering. They may be passing off. The EMS, the first responder, may be telling the transport, okay, we just took the vital signs, we've got a high heart rate, we've got low blah, blah, blah blood pressure, you need to do this, da, 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 da. They get in an ambulance and go to the hospital. I think those are some areas that we can look at. I'd like to see the city make that money, frankly. But I think the county makes a lot of money, so I don't think they really want to give that up. But it's something we can look at. Homeless, I started the city's homeless task force. I think there are still some issues. There are issues with the feeding, and we were able to handle that by getting everybody to eat at St. Vincent de Paul. That program fell apart, and I think still have some concerns about why it fell apart, but I think we need to get to that, because I don't like to see people dumpster diving. That's not good for them. It's not good for the folks who are concerned about strangers in their alleys. We'll work on that.
Candy Kriseman.
Thank you. Universal recycling, I am supportive of that. I'd certainly like to look at our sanitation system to see if there's ways of creating some efficiencies that can save us resources. Also look at tipping fees and some of the other things to try and lower costs. But I think it's kind of for the Green City to be one of the few cities in this that doesn't have universal recycling. It speaks volumes. Transportation or EMS is a huge problem, as Bill was saying. You know, the public safety is our #1 responsibility as a community, and that means making sure that response times are maintained, but we have to look for avenues of cost savings. There have been a number of studies that I think certainly are worth looking into, and part of the problem is I think everybody has to be willing to come to the table and recognize that it's not sustainable the way it is right now, between the cost that the county incurs, the costs to our citizens, and we've got to find solutions. We have to be willing to come together on that issue. And it's something that hasn't been done very well between the city, not just our city, but cities in general and the county. As far as homelessness goes, we've got to be looking at best practices that are being done around the country. You've got to, in order to get at homelessness, drug addictions, mental health issues, we've got to find the resources to address those. We haven't done a very good job in this community. It's something that I want to change, of bringing resources back from Washington into the community. And a lot of that goes to relationships. I've got a lot of relationships that I built up in the last couple elections with this administration that I think will be helpful to bringing resources back in the community, because unfortunately that's what it takes to address these issues. But jobs are just as big a part of it, because even if you address mental illness and you address drug addiction, if people don't have jobs, it isn't going to make a difference.
Thank you. We have time for just one more question this evening, and we've certainly heard from you previously. So our last question of the evening.
Well, I'd like to just say on behalf of everyone here, we really appreciate all three of you offering yourselves for public service. In 2015, the city is scheduled to formulate and adopt a master waterfront plan. Assuming that the voters decide to terminate the lens on August 28th, 27th? Thank you. Wouldn't it make sense to integrate the waterfront master plan with any plans for a future pier?
That's a good question, and it might. The short answer is it absolutely might. This task force that I assembled to make a recommendation to me is to come up with a planning, the process for design and selection of the new pier. It may entail some incorporation of a waterfront master plan. Now, I'm not going to put words in whatever they're going to do and what they're going to propose as far as inclusiveness and RFP, who should be what. I doubt we'll get an international design suggestion. I doubt we'll get a jury selection process, but I'm going to leave that up to them. But if there is a necessity to fast track this waterfront master planning process, I'm willing to do that. I don't know that we have to wait until 2015 to do that.
And in an ideal situation, yes. The answer would be yes to that. But we find ourselves in a situation today that's not ideal, and that we have a pier that's been closed down, that could have remained open, businesses could have kept going. Whether there hasn't been some changes to the way it operates, of course, because some of the structure was problematic for heavy vehicles, but it could have been, and that could have happened. But we don't find ourselves in that situation. So I think any task force that's reformed that looks at where do we go from here has to be mindful of the fact that there is, at the same time, ongoing a waterfront master planning process that's being undertaken. And they do have to work together, and that waterfront master plan is going to have to incorporate whatever comes out of that task force. So they are going to have to work together. It's unfortunate that they're not going to be able to be done in really the way that would have been ideal.
Good question. I had a suggestion about a year ago because I anticipated, based on conversations I had with a lot of folks with the vote on the pier, that, the folks in St. Pete really love their waterfront. So I had suggested back then that we come up with a primary ballot that would list all the possible choices. For example, do we want to preserve and refurbish the inverted pyramid? Do we want the looping sidewalk lanes? Do we want to have a different pier? Do we want to have no pier at all? Do we want to wait and have the waterfront master plan group come up with a choice? I think that that's what should happen in November. We're going to be voting on Stop the Lens. It would be my hope that City Council would put, do you want to keep the inverted pyramid, yes or no, and that we would know the answer to that question by November, before everybody launches off into this master waterfront plan, and before And the reason I say that is because this inverted pyramid is structurally sound. It sits on 4 or 5 concrete caissons. It's all structurally sound. That's, I think, 60,000 square, 62 square feet, 62,000 square.
20 by 20, and there's 62 feet in the lime rock below.
That's how solid it is. But I'm talking about the actual square footage of the inverted pyramid, because there's some first floor retail on the bottom. But I think that that's where we need to go, is we need to find out what the citizens want to do about the inverted pyramid. We're going to find out whether or not they like the lens. And I think if they like the lens on August 27th, that'll take care of that decision. But if it's going to be defeated, as it looks likely, then I think we have to ask that question of what do we want to do with that inverted pyramid, because it's a significant 78,000 square feet of commercial space out there. Mind you, a portion of that is the first floor retail that was not a part of the original design, but you all probably know this. The way Harvard and Jolly designed that inverted pyramid was for 2 or 3 more stories to go on top. So we could take that first floor retail and put it on the top.
And we'll put a clock up there because the time has elapsed.
I think we should do that. Thank you.
I'd like you to join me in extending a very, very warm round of applause for our candidates. For your time, for your talent, for your willingness to serve, for your patience, and for your perseverance through this evening. And the same is extended to each and every one of you. It's important that you're involved. It's important that you involve your neighbors, your family members, your friends, your co-workers. This is an important decision, and it's the only one that we have available to us to make. Don't sleep it. It's critically important that you be involved. Every one of the issues that was brought to the attention of this entire group is of importance to someone. And I would encourage you, beg, please, prod, and all of those things to be involved from now through November, through the appointment of the next mayor, and through the 4 years that that individual will be serving as mayor. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you for your willingness to listen. We encourage you to speak. With that, I'm going to offer to you additional opportunities to meet these candidates. They all are very approachable. They're all very well informed about those issues. Whether you agree with the issues or not, it's important that you be aware of those issues. With that, I'm going to ask Pastor to come forward and give us the charge for the evening benediction. Is that the right word? It works. Thank you so much.
Let's give Michelle a hand. Wonderful job. And also to the candidates, I do want to recognize the public officials that are here. We did not do that earlier. I'm going to ask you to stand, all of our elected officials, so that we can recognize you. Commissioner Wells, Councilman Newton, Representative Rusan was here. Councilman Gerdes. Did I miss anybody else that was here? School member Renee Flowers. Okay, so we thank you all, and please forgive that oversight earlier. We were just trying to be on time. And you, the audience, thank you for your patience and your listening ears. You are the most important component of what we're doing. On behalf of the NAACP, we want to just reiterate the fact that we're about justice. We're fighting the fight of justice for all. That's what we do. And so we thank you for helping us. And if you are curious about what you can do to help us, please contact myself and we will certainly show you where you can help us. And I think that's about it. Thanks to the candidates once again. We think they did a fine job. And The NAACP, let me put this out here, is a nonpartisan organization. We cannot endorse candidates. We endorse policies. We fight for the policies and the systems that are fair to all. So from that perspective, please understand that my position is to push for your rights, and then you elect who you deem is the proper person to do that, and by all means. While we fight for those who cannot vote, make sure that if you can, you do. Thank you very much. And